Time for some super exciting exhaust action. So what I got here, stock S10 exhaust, and this is stock Tahoe exhaust. Doesn't matter what you get. I just looked for one that was fairly rust-free. Happened to be a Tahoe. You can see this is almost no rust, and they cut it with a cutoff instead of just smashing it. So I pulled this from the junkyard, and it was about 15 bucks for everything, including the muffler. And what you get is 2 3/4 inch exhaust, which was obviously designed perfectly to work with a 5.3. Amazing, right? So, bends are pretty close. Got your spare tire right here, and this is where it exits out behind the tire. This is where they both go over the axle. And then the mufflers are pretty much in the same location. Then I should have a bunch of extra pipe right here. The only thing is they cut out catalytic converters. I'm getting ready to weld together the parts for the exit tip, I guess we'll call this. So stock Tahoe, the hanger goes outward, and the leaf spring on the S10 runs like right underneath this. So when the suspension travels, it's definitely going to hit this. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it here. I'm going to flip this 180, and then this is off the Tahoe in the junkyard. I just cut it all so I'd have these. And I'm just going to weld this to this plate, and then this plate, once it's flipped, it'll sit right about there. And this lines up perfectly with the frame rail. So drilled extra holes, should be able to use at least 2 of them, drill and tap the frame rail, bolt this guy on. So that'll give me my rear hanger. This will give me my first rear permanent starting point to work forward. And then up under the car, you can see I've got some clearance to the leaf spring. It's kind of tight back there, but again, nothing's permanently mounted, so when I weld the hangers on, I can move that. I just have them lightly together with clamp. Plenty of space up above the axle. For the hanger for the muffler, I actually used the stock S10 hanger. It's just moved it over and lightly bolted it. I'll have to drill and tap another hole. Got the muffler up in place. It's close to the frame rail, but it's got plenty of space. And then I've got a good 3 inches or 4 inches to the drive shaft here. So no concerns with that. Where the S10 cross member is, let's see if I can get this good angle for you. There we go. So that's the stock hump for the exhaust, and it lines up right with the Y pipe, and it's got, I mean, it's tight, but it's got about a 1/2 inch or so. I'm going to mount it fairly rigidly so it shouldn't bounce against it. If it does, I can always lower it a little bit, lower the exhaust, that is. Then the crossover to the driver's side, I've got in the stock location right near the transmission pan. So I've got it running in that little dip in the transmission pan, how they run on a stock vehicle. It's kind of shoved up tight right now. That's just because I'm holding it up on jack stands, so it's not really a final position, but I'll lower that a little bit when it comes time. This was just to kind of mock it up, because the first thing I need to do is cut this pipe Tahoe's obviously a longer vehicle. So this cut right there, I cut it right there with the muffler. So I just need to cut it right in here. Then I can clamp that together and continue leveling everything out and mocking it up. But it's a real good fit. The only thing is junkyards cut the cats out. So these pipes, this is the rear O2 sensor, and you're going to be missing the whole section up to the front O2 sensor, which I've got the little pieces for that. So once I get this rear part all mounted up in place, I'll put those on, and then I'll have to make a little, it's about 2 feet on the passenger side and 1.5 feet on the driver's side is where you're going to have to fill in where the cats were. So let me get this pipe trimmed and my hangers welded in place, and should be able to make some good progress. Working on the driver's side, manifold exhaust, pretty much done. So the basic process, you got your fixed points, like I mentioned. You've got your muffler back here, which is where I started. And then I set the, come on man, I set the Y pipe in, and I just supported it with some jack stands about where the height I want. I've got it parallel to the transpan. So then the end right here became my fixed point to go to. And then my exhaust manifold was bolted on. So the first piece I added was this piece with the O2 sensor bung up here. And I had to clock it a little bit to get clearance. So now I can take it on and off. Then I added this little section, tacked on 1/2 of the V-band, clamped it together. So now my fixed point was from this fixed point to this fixed point. So then I just kind of worked and cut a piece that fit in here, ground it, set it up, tacked it in. So now this whole driver's side is pretty steady. It's all tacked in, but I'll pull it out for all the finish welding. So now I'm ready to do the passenger side now that my driver's side is all done. If you try going back and forth, you're just gonna have issues. Just do one side then the other. And I highly recommend some type of removable piece on one side. I've done it where I've welded the entire, I guess we'll call it front exhaust as one piece, and it's hard to slide it on and off the exhaust manifold studs. So I'm doing a V-band on the driver's side for this car. Just happen to have the right size sitting around, so that's going on there. You can do the other clamps. You can do whatever you want. V-bands are about the same price. You might as well go with them. So that's the driver's side. And I'm leaving this one, if you notice my broke O2 sensor, this is the stock rear O2 sensor. I'm leaving this in so I can put a wideband in here if I ever want. It's in a great location and it's right at the correct angle, so that'll be good. On to the passenger side. Alright, front exhaust is finally done. So this is a Frankenstein's monster. You can see I've got different pieces. All these are junkyard pipes. Different sections that I had left over from other projects. It's all 2.5. So this whole front exhaust is 2.5, just like stock. Got my V-band disconnect over there. Got an O2 sensor there, and I got one under here. So I have both front O2s. So that's the front. It's hard to video under the car, so it's easier to show it to you now. So now I'm ready to bolt this up to the muffler, bolt it up to the manifolds, and we are all done for exhaust. Not my favorite job to do, but it's got to get done. Alright, getting the last few turns of my V-band connection. Here's the final tour of the exhaust setup. Coming back on the driver's side, under the transpan, cross member, coming off the passenger side, come together to the Y pipe, muffler, and back over the rear axle. It's sticking out, you can just see it over there. With the stock Tahoe muffler, it just sticks out a hair below the frame rail. You can probably take a little more time and tuck it up. I left about an inch or so from the trans tunnel, so I mean it could go up another ½ inch. I got less than maybe 45 bucks into the whole thing. V-band was about 12 of it, so not too bad, including a muffler. Welds are nasty, but whatever. If you can't weld good, weld a lot.